I was
Oh, hold on. Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's live discussion on Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4. Lower Decks. and I'm joined, of course, by Sister Alyssa to talk about Lower Decks. Thanks so much for joining, Alyssa.
lower decks. Lower decks. Good to be here. Thanks for having me to talk about season 4 of Lower Decks.
Cool. Now, I should start by saying I have a bit of a cold at the moment, so you have to excuse me if I call for pause or whatever. But yeah, still wanted to go ahead and talk about Lower Decks. I thought this was a pretty good season of, I think, one of my favorite Star Trek shows. So, what were your thoughts on season 4 as a whole, Alyssa?
So, my thoughts on season 4. I came into this season thinking that each season previously improved upon the previous seasons, and I did a rewatch of the first three, and that was more than confirmed. In fact, I really felt a huge difference between season 3 and season 1 after I did a rewatch. Like, the show drastically improved. So I thought, well, what if they can keep doing it? What if they can make season 4 even better than season 3? Then that is going to be the best season of Star Trek ever. That bar might have been a little high because to me, they didn't clear that bar. I still think season 3 is better than season 4. I think season 3 just had more really, really amazing, really great, some of my favorite episodes. Season 4, I only gave one 10 out of 10 in season 4, and it was kind of a tentative, yeah, I guess I think this is a 10 kind of thing. It wasn't like this is a 10, whereas season 3 had two of those. This is definitely a 10. Another one that I ended up giving a 9.5 to after my rewatch, and then I had a bunch of nines. Season 3, of course, does have my least favorite episode in the series, so it's got that against it, but I don't really hold that against it. I really look at the best of the season, and nothing in season 4 to me met with the best of season 3. However, season 4 also didn't have anything super bad. I think the lowest rating I gave was maybe a 6.5. And there was a lot of mediocrity. I think there was more mediocrity in season 4 than there was in season 3. Now, character-wise, I did like what they did with Mariner. I know not everyone did. I was disappointed after the Bold Boimler plot from last season that Boimler he kind of becomes the king of the B plots this year. Like, he only got one episode that was his, and then he was like the star of the B plots almost every week. So that was disappointing to me. So I don't know. The season had some ups and downs. Overall, I would still look at it as the second best season of Lower Decks of the 4. A little behind season 3, but still a really strong season. When it was good, it was good. And I'm sure as we go through the episodes, we'll talk about some of the episodes that I really liked in this season and some that I didn't like as much. But yeah, so solid, strong, not quite as good as season 3 for me.
Yeah, I heard you mention that before, and I was trying to compare it to season 3 myself and what I thought of it. And I was looking back at the episodes of season 3 and comparing it to season 4. And I think I fall more along the lines of that I like them equally. I don't know if I could choose right now. It has been a while since I've seen season 3, so I think I'd have to rewatch it to get it. But where I was at was, I think season 3 had a couple of episodes that were better, like a couple of 10s where I don't know if season 4 had any 10s, but I thought season 4 is more consistently good. I thought there were more sort of lower quality episodes in season 3, and I mostly like the two-part finale. I thought was better in season 4 than it was in season 3. And yeah, you mentioned Mariner's character story. I actually also agree. I loved that. I thought that was great. I thought that was a great through story. I liked the connected storyline of the ships disappearing and how that was resolved in the 2-part finale. I think that was an interesting way to connect the season together. It was like a running thread throughout the season. I actually really appreciated that. So, but it didn't have any, hear all, trust nothing level of good episodes. So, for me, it was almost about equal. But I think they were both seasons were really good.
Yeah, I would agree that the 2-part finale was better because episode 9 in season 3 kind of sucked. It didn't suck, but it wasn't as good as episode 9 of this season. So I would agree with that. I just felt like with the Badgie episode and the Caves episode, just mediocre. Whereas, and I just did a rewatch of season 3. There are very few mediocre episodes. So I just feel there's this more mediocrity in season 4. So, although season 3 does have my least favorite episode of the season. Yeah, but I had set this bar at the beginning of the season, like, season 4 could be better than season 3, and I just don't think it met that. But that doesn't mean I thought season 4 sucked. I think there's a lot of. It's still probably my second favorite season of Lower Decks, and honestly, overall, one of my favorite seasons of Modern Trek. I mean, it's you throw in Strange New Worlds, it's in the top 3 or 4 best seasons of Modern Trek. So
yeah,
it's still a really strong season. It just didn't clear the really high bar that probably the unrealistic bar that I had set for it at the beginning of this season. And I'm disappointed in Boimler that I've heard people say, well, we got a lot of Boimler last season. Well, we got a lot of Mariner last season, too. We got a lot of Mariner every season. And I don't know. I was disappointed that Boimler took a back seat this season. And then I have very mixed feelings on the Tendi storyline this season, which I know we'll get into.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just answer. I see a question in the chat real quick. Tyler Cease. I'll just tell you real quick. What is it called? The mathematical. What is it? The perfect mathematical redemption or the peanut hamper?
Yeah, the peanut hamper episode. Yeah.
a mathematically perfect redemption.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah. My least favorite episode in the series. So yeah, but then it also has some of my best favorite episodes in the series as well.
Well, it's funny because I guess where we part ways, where I kind of disagree, is when I was looking over the list of season 3, I actually, in my humble opinion, think season 3 has more mediocrity, more mediocre episodes. But maybe you probably think higher of those, and I probably think higher of some of these season 4 ones.
Well, I know we're on the same page as like the Badgie one and the Caves and like just like all these mediocre.
Well, I've actually turned around on the Badgie episode. I actually quite like that now.
I mean, yeah, the Badgie episode would have been fine without the peanut hamper thing in it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more when we get there.
The peanut hamper thing kind of brings it down, but yeah, we'll talk about it when we get there.
Yeah, but I will say I did rewatch that episode like yesterday, and actually my opinion of it went up.
Yeah, and I rewatched season 3, so a lot of my opinion went up. Like the Rutherford episode Reflections, I changed from an 8 to a 9.5. So I had like my rewatch increased my opinion of a lot of those season 3 episodes. So maybe that'll happen after I rewatch season 4 too. If I rewatch season 4, maybe I'll increase my opinion on some of them as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like to be more specific about season 3, like the season premiere, I thought was a bit of a letdown. It wasn't all that good, and then you had the Minding the Mind's Minds, which was kind of just okay, or the Room for Growth episode, I really did not like, and as I said, the 2-part finale was fine, but I don't think it was great. But yeah.
No, season 3 to me I gave it 2 10s, a 9.5, and 2 9s. So half of the season was a 9 or higher for me.
Right.
And I don't have anything close to that in season 4. And I only gave 110, and that was like after a week, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll give it a 10. Like, it's not a strong 10. So
Yeah. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the specific episodes. Let's start with the first episode, Two Vix, which Two Vix, which I just watched right before coming on here. I believe in your review you gave it a 9, and after just watching it, like, I don't think I like this episode all that much. It was okay. I don't think it's a bad episode, but I have very strong mixed feelings about bringing up Tuvix again, which I think is one of the worst episodes that a lot of people like. Now, in my review, I kind of justified it by saying, oh, they're just being so stupid and ridiculous, and that's making fun of how stupid and ridiculous that episode is. But I'm probably giving this show too much credit. I don't know if that's their intention, is to point out how flawed that episode is, because in this episode, when the people are combined, they immediately start completely act nothing like the people they were combined with, and they start going and being all evil. And so for me, I'm like, oh, that is so ridiculous. They're pointing out how stupid and ridiculous Tuvix was, with the character of Tuvix acting absolutely nothing like Tuvok and Neelix, and being just whining about how he wants to live and not considering the people. I did like the running gag of, Freeman saying, oh, I'll just do whatever Janeway did. I'm sure she figured it out. But yeah, and then we get into the whole thing of them saying, oh, he straight up murdered him, which how would they expect to get out of that situation other than separating the two? Because it's two people and one person. Will they expect to create like a different version of those two? I guess they could Thomas Riker the thing, but still, it's like, I don't know. I like, and then when I went to the other storyline, it did just seem like a lot of Voyager nostalgia. That wasn't, there were some funny jokes in there, don't get me wrong, but it didn't seem to have a strong narrative purpose, especially compared to the Deep Space Nine crossover of the previous year. So I'm sort of hanging like between a 6 and a 7 on this episode. Now I can't remember what I gave it originally, maybe an 8. But yeah, I don't know. What were your thoughts on this one?
Well, I haven't watched it since it first streamed. I may have watched it twice when it first streamed, but I haven't watched it since then. But I'm basing this solely off of memory, the 10-week-old memory. I'm sticking with my 9, and a very strong 9. I did think that they were showing how ridiculous the Tuvix thing was, mainly because at the end, they were like, oh, because they're all throughout, they're going, oh, Janeway straight up murdered him, blah, blah, blah. Oh, we can't murder them, blah, blah, blah. And then once all the people combine, then Tendi says, well, now it's just one big giant blob, so let's just separate them. Which just shows how ridiculous Tuvix is, because why is it okay with a big giant blob and it's not okay with two people? So to me, like, I thought that was brilliant. I absolutely loved it. And I give more credit to the B plot than you do. I think no, it wasn't a Hero I'll Trust Nothing. I never said that it was. But I love the use of the Voyager callbacks for comedy, which is what they do. They did in High Excretus. It's what they do. And some of my favorite episodes is doing some, callbacks to previous episodes and using it for comedy, and that's exactly what they did. Having the those macrovirus targets assimilated by the Borg, that's so good. So to me, it wasn't used to tell a good narrative story or a good character story the way that Here I'll Trust Nothing was, but it's used the way that Lower Decks always uses references like that for comedy, and that really worked for me. So yeah, I stand by my 9. Absolutely love this episode. One of my favorites of the season.
I think the comedy was good in this episode, but for me personally, it wasn't to the level of like I Excretus or the Crisis Point or something like that.
No, it wasn't to those levels. Those were 10s for me.
And I don't know, because I'm just listening to a lot of people who like the episode 2, Vix, and they look at it, of course, differently than we do. They're like, oh, it's paying homage to this great episode that we love.
Yeah, maybe we just all see what we want to see in it.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. It's hard to know what the writers actually intended. I mean, maybe it could have been like a little from column A, a little from column B. Maybe they're trying to honor the episode, but at the same time point out how ridiculous it was.
Which I think they have done before. I think they can honor an episode and also point out that it's ridiculous.
But I don't want them to honor this episode. It sucks.
Well, I see. For me, I take away more because it ended with them going, "Oh, let's just it's a big flop anyway." So to me, the ending was like, "Yes, you're on our side," even if that's not what they intended. Ended on a positive note for me.
All right. Let's see. Norman said I'd only give episode 9 a wow, and I guess the Frank and I episode, I'd give it 8.5, but it's 8 or 7.5. Oh, so he was kind of low in the season as a whole. Well, not low, but not super high. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move over to the next episode, which is I Have No Bones Yet I Must Flee. And I think this might be an opposite situation where I like this episode better. This is another one I rewatched. I rewatched pretty much the whole season yesterday, most of it. Some of the episodes I just scanned through. This one I watched all the way through, and I do really like this episode a lot. First of all, the whole thing with the Moopsie I thought was brilliant. Some people, I think they have to have the Moopsie return. I see a lot of Moopsie memes and jokes now, and I just thought it was just having this cute little thing going oopsie, and then it would like suck your bones dry. And I just love Mariner's reaction to it, going "Holy fuck!" and how they were running around. But then this is I thought was a really good character story for Mariner and Ransom, pairing the two, and how dealing with her. I like it. They did a classic sitcom trope, which usually I think is dumb, where she overhears two people talking and misunderstands it. But they actually like made something really good of it, and the whole thing of her constantly trying to get demoted, like, you know, having the shuttle crash, like crashing and like showing up out of uniform and stuff like that, I thought was hilarious. But I thought the emotional resolution to the storyline was really good when she actually had it out with Ransom, and Ransom is being like, no, I actually believe in you, and she was getting the second guess herself and realizing that she was self-destructing on purpose, and how she was willing to sacrifice herself, but Ransom, you know, didn't let her. And of course, his solution was for her to punch him repeatedly and get the teeth out. And the whole thing with the instant Gary, I thought was pretty funny, where he's just like, "Leave me out of this." What was the B plot in this episode with?
Was this the one with Rutherford trying to get promoted?
Oh yes, I love that B plot. I thought that B plot was amazing. When he was like, Livick! That was like it was funny because he just met him, and it's like, who is this guy? His name's Livick, and 2 seconds later he's going, Livick! And constantly trying to get promoted, and eventually Tendy's like, hey, Phillips, can you promote Rutherford for that time he saved the ship? Oh yeah, sure! And just flings that. That was absolutely hilarious. And then having Livick then go Rutherford. Like, that was so great. So I actually really loved this episode. I think this is one of my favorites of the season.
Oh, I gotta say hi to Allison Fordyce. Have not seen you in a long time. I was so happy to see you.
Oh yes, Allison, how's it going? Oh wait, listen, before you start, I want to just give a shout out to Bob, a Redneck Lover 22, for the super chat. Thanks so much. Saying season 4 was good, but I'm not happy with the writer's obsession with Orion culture. Rutherford's Trek's biggest sex symbol. I did not think of Rutherford in that way. That is interesting. But as far as the Orion culture, I agree. We will get to that later. But anyway, Alyssa, go ahead.
Now this could end up being one of those episodes that I do a season 4 rewatch and I like better, but my again, I haven't watched it since it first streamed, but my initial reaction, watched the first 2 episodes, as you recall, came out together. I was like, "Oh, episode 1 really good. Episode 2 sounds good." That's um, I did like the heart in the episode. I did like the fact that Ransom was looking out for Mariner, and he's like, "I'm not going to let you fail." I really love that. I did enjoy the Rutherford B plot, but the rest of the A plot, I actually hated that Lieutenant, was it Gary or whatever.
Yeah, Gary. Yeah, you hated him.
He was irritating. Yeah, I think that's kind of what really ruined the
Oh
episode
wow.
for me. I still ended up. I think I ended up giving it an 8 or something like that. So I didn't like hate it, but it was a clear downgrade after watching episode 1 to me, from my point of view. So yeah, it was okay, but yeah, I think that Lieutenant Gary was just. I mean, he was almost. You're gonna hate that I say this, but not quite as bad, but almost as annoying to me as the guy in the who was in the Montana ride in episode 1 of the previous.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, I
it
didn't
was
find
really
any.
annoying. Like I really felt
Really?
the character to go away. Like it definitely brings down the episode a lot. And the sitcom trope, yeah, I'm not ready to hand wave it. That really did kind of bother me.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
But again, I do think I gave it like an 8. So I still like, because I think because of the Ransom Mariner, the heart of the story, and then the B plot was I did enjoy the Levick. So didn't hate it, but to me, this was a downgrade from the first episode.
Yeah, I felt the exact opposite. I thought this was an upgrade. But I guess, like, yeah, I wouldn't compare Gary. I think, wasn't he an ensign? I thought he was an ensign.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think so. I don't remember.
But I wouldn't compare him to that guy from the amusement park.
Yeah, wasn't he like a brand new? Like he was brand new to the ship or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of. I didn't mind him. I thought it was kind of funny how he was like, "Leave me out of this." When Mariner was like going all this crazy, saying all this crazy shit about Ransom and doing these crazy stunts. Yeah, I don't know. He kind of worked for me. But what did you think of the Moopsie though?
Oh yeah, the Moopsie. Yeah, I mean, it's not like I've never seen that before, where they have somebody does like this little cute little thing in it, this horrible monster. So I was like, yeah, I mean, seen it before, but it's fine.
But as far as the sitcom trope, I personally feel Lower Decks does this a lot, where they'll take a sitcom trope that's usually tropish and ridiculous, but actually do something good with it. And for me, this was another example of that. Fair enough. All right. So, pardon me. So let's move over to the next episode, which is in the Cradle of Vexilon. Yeah, this episode was okay. I like I guess you would call A and B plot with on the planet with free. I like how they have a supercomputer that's actually like benevolent. That's actually like really nice, and they're all like so used to supercomputers being evil. They're like, "Oh my god, this is good. Supercomputer is not evil." And the joke with them trying to repair it had a lot of course, modern day computer jokes in it, with putting in safe mode or having to reboot it or whatever. I thought was pretty funny, and the Boimler storyline with him trying to, not have the ensigns do anything while he's doing all the work himself because he doesn't feel comfortable giving his peers orders. And T'Lyn, I thought this was a good T'Lyn Boimler team up. How she's tried to talk reason with them. It's like, enough of this ridiculous behavior, and he's like, yes, hey guys, T'Lyn says I have to put you all in danger. That is not how I would phrase it. and then finally, the whole thing. Oh, this is when he dies and sees the koala and then comes back to life. So that was all good. I hated the other plot. I guess you would call it the C plot. With there were some funny jokes in it, especially with that's the one was that Tindy Rutherford and Mariner were trying to. They were being. God, what's the word I'm looking for? Not pranked, but hazed. They're being hazed by that asshole guy who was in the first episode saying, "Move along, lower deckers." And that's why I hate the storyline, because I think hazing, especially the ending where the Ransom and him were like, "Oh yeah, it was good to haze those lieutenants," because I think that goes against everything Starfleet stands for. And so that, and that whole storyline just, and I could tell that when the guy was saying this traumatic story he had with being trapped in the Chula game, I could tell that was bullshit, and it was so typical. But as I said, there were some funny jokes in there, having the Chula thing. Although from seeing Chula in the trailer, I thought they were going to do something funnier or better with what they did. So I actually thought that was a bit of a disappointment. But I did love the part where they had the inner light beam, and he used the little Betazoid gift box and held it up. He was like, "I miss my wife." Like, that was kind of funny. But yeah, I think so. For me, the main plot on the planet was pretty good, not amazing, but the other secondary plot kind of ruined the episode for me. But anyway.
Well, in retrospect, I like talking about the main plot. I like it more because it's the only thing Boimler does all year. It's the only episode he gets where he's the lead character for the whole season, and then he's relegated to king of the B plots for the rest of the season. And I wanted more of this. Okay, Boimler is promoted to lieutenant junior grade. He's been the one out of all of our characters who's most been seeking out the captaincy and wanting to go on the path of being a captain. And he joined up with those, remember the red shirts that one season where they were all like supposed to be preparing him to be a captain and they were all idiots. But he's been on that path. So I wanted more of this. And I did enjoy the one scene he got when he got to sit in the captain's chair at the end of the season. And we'll get to that. But I was going to say this in my review and I forgot. If anyone has a problem with it, Geordi was also lieutenant junior grade who became in charge of the Enterprise in season 1 of Next Generation. But in any case, like I wanted more of this. And so in retrospect, like I think back fondly of the one episode where I got what I wanted. And I do agree that T'Lyn and Boimler was a great pairing. I guess I'm not quite as down on the other plot as you are. I didn't hate it. I can kind of see with the hazing thing. Yeah, that kind of rubs me the wrong way too. I'm not a huge fan of that, but I don't know, it was fine. I thought that plot was fine, but it did have those funny jokes in it, as you mentioned. But I really like the A plot. And then the B plot was good, and the C plot was just kind of. I didn't hate it the way you did, but I didn't like. Definitely was the weak point of the episode.
Oh yeah, and I just realized we haven't really talked about how the decision to make to promote the 4 main characters in the very first episode, which was bold. Apparently,
first episode, and then Rutherford the next one.
Yeah.
Well, actually, 4 of the 5 if you count T'Lyn.
Yeah, but the Rutherford thing, that was hilarious. But anyway, because apparently the original thought was to wait till the end of the season, but then they were like, well, wouldn't it be more interesting if we just promote them right away and then spend the whole season with them promoted? I'm like, I actually thought that was like a brave decision. And we were talking before when we talked about previous seasons, how they need to move the characters forward. They can't just be stagnant and be Harry Kim and be ensigns forever. And I love that they're doing that. I love that they're not shying away from actually, moving the characters forward. And they even addressed that in the first episode when Mariner was all bummed out and saying we're not lower decks anymore. And like, yeah, we're still lower decks because we're the lowest of the mid officers. Which I suppose this hazing storyline did address, that they were still sort of looked down upon, but I don't think Starfleet should be doing hazing. Like, that's just, yeah.
Yeah, I can agree with that, yeah.
And I don't like that character at all either. I don't even know that guy's name. He didn't show up very much. But as far as what you were saying about Boimler, I actually didn't notice until you just brought it up today about him not really having his time to shine in this season. I guess it didn't really bother me as much because I think, he wasn't front and center in too many other episodes, but I don't know.
No other episode. He was always the B plot every single. I was keeping track of it as we were watching them. I was like, he's a B plot again. B plot again.
Well, he was a part of the A plot in episode 9. But I guess it focused more on Mariner.
That was a Mariner episode. Yeah, I mean, he was more involved in episodes 9 and 10 because they didn't really have B plots per se. Those were just kind of episodes. Yeah. But up until that point, he was the B plot every single time.
Yeah, I didn't really have an issue with that. I don't know.
Yeah, other than Bold Boimler last season, I guess because I was tracking this from the beginning. Like after this episode, I'm like, oh, what are they going to do with Boimler? Oh, B plot. Oh, B plot. Every week I'm tracking it. So this was fresh in my head every single week that they're doing nothing with Boimler. And they abandoned the William Boimler storyline. They're hoping that's coming back next season.
They have to, hopefully they will bring that back next season.
Yeah. But I also wanted to touch.
Oh wait, I don't know. I would argue the Badgie episode. I would say his Boimler had a lot to do in that with the hanging out with Artemis.
Yeah.
And I would actually, even though the episode was called Badgie, I would call that Artemis thing the A plot personally. But I don't know.
Yeah, I would call Badgie the A plot. But yeah, that's true. He does have more to do in that episode, but it just doesn't really forward his story. It's not. Yeah, it's.
I agree. The season was definitely more focused on Mariner than Boimler, but I didn't really have an issue with that.
Yeah, no, it really bothered me because we had the Bold Boimler last season, and I'm waiting for it. But anyways, I want to get back to what you were talking about. You didn't let me follow.
Sure. Go ahead.
About how they were promoted to lieutenant junior grade, because I do agree with that. I do agree that was a bold choice to promote them, not just to promote them at the beginning of the season, but to promote them at all in this show. And they are becoming less and less like Lower Decks and further away from the original premise of the show, because this season we're seeing them in the conference room more. We're seeing them more on the bridge, like Rutherford and Boimler both on the bridge at the same time, and we're seeing that more often. And they're getting, the captain is consulting them, so they're becoming more important characters. So we're really moving away from the original premise of the show, and I love it. I don't think you need to stick to that. Like when the show first came out, I was like, how are they going to do multiple seasons about insignificant characters who are in the Lower Decks? Like, I think you kind of have to move them up in order for the show to actually work. And so I thought it was a bold choice. It was brave of them to do that, and I think it paid off and will continue to pay off in the future.
Yeah, part of the reason why I love that Rutherford storyline of getting promoted in episode 2 is because they addressed the fact of how many times these characters saved the ship. That the senior officers are actually noticing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did want to address Brandon in the chat saying, cleaning the computer chips reminded me of Tuvok making Shell clean the transporter pad with a toothbrush in the episode called, it was called Learning Curve. God, that episode was stupid. You know what the episode I'm talking about where Tuvok...
Yeah, with the Maquis people, like in season or something, or second season. Or...
It was the finale of the first season.
Finale of the first season. Okay.
Yeah, I remember we used to always joke that that Tuvok was acting like a gym teacher. We used to call this episode Tuvok throwing basketballs and making him clean the transporter pad with the toothbrush. That's stupid. So, yeah. I suppose in that regard, his Lower Decks episode wasn't as bad, but I don't know. Anyway, all right, so let's move over to the next episode. Something borrowed, something green. Okay, so we can finally get into this Tendi storyline, in which I went on. I don't know if I call it a rant, but I went on a bit of a tirade in my review of the finale because this storyline of their finding out that she's this pirate queen that everyone bows to, and everyone goes, "Oh my God, it's the mistress of the what do they call it? The winter
constellations.
winter constellation."
Constellations. Yeah.
Now you watched the three previous seasons of Lower Decks recently. Is this something new that they just made up in this season?
The her being the queen of the winter constellations,
Yeah.
yes. That was definitely something they invented for this
I
season.
know they implied her pirate background in the "Here All Trust Nothing" episode. Maybe
They
another
imply, yeah, in the previous episodes, the one I forget the one with her and Mariner went off together.
Oh yeah.
Go,
Oh yeah, Mariner was like acting. She was like, told Mariner to act like a pirate. She's like, "Arr!"
Yeah, that was the first one where they kind of alluded to Tindy's family being pirates. I mean, this isn't. I mean, they never said she wasn't, but so they never did anything to directly contradict this. However, I kind of wish they didn't because, as I said in my review, like we did this already with Phillips, like having.
Yeah.
So it's like every character secretly royalty, and their family is upset that they went and joined Starfleet and didn't, go on with the family legacy to be royal or whatever. Like, does every member of the Cerritos have that? I mean, so I think that was my biggest issue with that.
Well, I don't know, that wasn't my biggest issue. But although I would say with the Billups thing, it was done better.
Yeah, I agree.
And I guess my biggest issue, even though, as you said, it's not a direct sort of retcon that doesn't contradict directly anything explicitly stated, but I personally think it contradicts the spirit of how this character was portrayed in season 1 and 2, maybe season 1 more so. And it's something that I liked. It was that she would get irritated with Mariner for bringing up pirate cliches because, hey, not all Orions are pirates, and that's something that was an issue with Star Trek, always stereotyping, clicheing their aliens, all Klingons are warriors, all Vulcans are logical, whatever. And I kind of like that they were breaking the mold and saying, hey, maybe not every Orion's got to have scientists, they got to have engineers. And it was kind of like, it's kind of offensive to stereotype them all. They even brought this up in the Strange New Worlds cameo that was a part of that, how Boimler was bringing it up. It was, considered rude to stereotype all Orions. And when they revealed Tindy had a pirate background, I was really iffy on that. I was like, well, that kind of contradicts the whole thing you're trying to say about not stereotyping people. But I was willing to go with it because she, grew up with the pirates, but she wanted to be something different. But then when they made her this princess or whatever, the Queen of the Winter Constellation? Mistress of the Winter
Constellations.
That to me was a bridge too far. That to me totally destroyed what they were originally trying to go with. And yes, she hated that and she was trying to hide it and be like, oh man, try to laugh it off. And like when she was doing the poisonous scorpion drinking game or whatever, and Mariner's like, when did you become good at this? It's like, oh no, I just learned it, beginner's luck, haha. So she was trying to laugh it off because obviously she doesn't sort of agree with this background, but I don't know. I don't think that justifies it. I think it really, really doesn't sit right with me. And so I hated like this whole storyline.
Yeah, I have a little different take on it. I think my big problem with this episode was that I didn't feel like it added a whole lot of anything new to Tindy's storyline, and Here I'll Trust Nothing is still the definitive Tindy episode for me. And so I just looked it up to see which episode it was. It was actually the B plot of We'll Always Have Tom Paris in season 2, which is where Tindy and Mariner went off together to Orion. But that was the first one. They didn't really touch on it in season 1. That's the first one where Tindy really like pushes back against the pirate stereotype, and it simultaneously it's the first time they introduced that she had a pirate family. So they did that at the same time.
Well, it's not the first time she pushed back. That was actually in season 1, the Crisis Point episode.
Yes, you're right. Crisis
Yeah.
Point was the first time she pushed back against the pirates. Um, and then they brought it back for season 2, and We'll Always Have Tom Paris, and spotlighted it more, just pushing back against the pirates. But also, I think that was probably the real reveal that she had the pirate family. Being a royalty of pirates is a whole other level that I wish they hadn't gone to. But I had no problem with them, um, showing that her family has a pirate background. But I never read it as Star Trek is saying we're pushing back against all stereotypes. I read it as, starting with that episode, Tendi pushing back against the stereotype because she wants to be her own person. She wants to do her own thing. She doesn't want to do the family business. So I read that from the beginning. I never read it as she is, royalty or whatever, this big important family. I didn't like that. I thought that was a bridge too far. But the idea of her pushing back against her pirate roots to become her own person, that is how I read it, more so than some grand statement about stereotypes. And then Here I'll Trust Nothing. The reason why I love that is because she's willing to accept that that's part of who she is, even though she is also a scientist. She shows Starfleet, but part of who her identity is being a pirate too, and she kind of accepted that into her identity. And Here I'll Trust Nothing. So here they are kind of they're building on it more by having her, now by the end of the season, go off and just flat out be a pirate for a little while. So they're building on what had been established previously. So there's no contradiction here. I think I think it was a bridge too far, making her like this big important royalty thing that I wish they hadn't done that. But nothing else they did really, to me, contradicts anything they've done before. In fact, I think they're building off what they've done before. So do I necessarily love that direction for the character? Maybe not. But I never saw it as like some grand statement against all stereotypes. So I guess I just look at it a little different.
Well, she did say specifically several times that not all Orions are pirates. So to me, that's not just a personal thing. That was a general statement.
Well, I think that was about her personally, though. Like, not all Orions are pirates, because she's saying she wants to be something different than pirates. Not all Orions, meaning her, are pirates.
But I think that's also something they touched on in the Strange New Worlds episode, when she was pissed off with they were assuming these Orions were there were no such thing as Orion scientists, and they must be pirates.
But they were pirates. I mean,
yeah, but that was an older time. But still, I don't know. To me,
I think it was personal for her because she did not want to be stereotyped as a pirate. And so she said not all Orions are pirates because they don't want people to stereotype.
But saying not all Orions are pirates to me implies all Orions, not just her. It's a general.
Yeah, but it was she said it because of herself, for her own personal self.
I don't know. All right, well, we'll have to agree to disagree on this one because I really think this contradicts the spirit of what they were doing with the Orions earlier.
Yeah. Now, granted, I'm not saying that I love this, but I definitely don't. I didn't have a problem with it. I know you will get to the finale. You had a big problem with it. I did not have a problem with it in the finale. And I can pull the card of, I just rewatched the first 3 seasons. So to me, it's not going against anything they've established before.
All right. All right. Well, I just watched the Strange New Worlds episode, and I think it goes against it. But we'll just...
No, because they actually were pirates.
But that was a couple hundred years ago, and they're actually... But the episode ended with them saying, yes, we can be scientists.
Yeah. Yes, it did, but they were still pirates. They were right about that. So that's kind of like Tendi's having an influence on them through time. But it's still the root of her saying that is still for herself because she wants to break away from her family and not be stereotyped as a pirate.
I don't know. I just wish that they never, I wish they never went in the direction of having her family be pirates. I was always against that, but I was willing to go with it. But her being this huge mistress or whatever, I'm never going to accept that. I'm going to always see that as a terrible storyline.
Yeah, I don't love it either, but it just doesn't ruin anything for me.
Let's. We didn't talk about the B plot of this episode.
Was this the Mark Twain one?
Yes. This is something we also don't see eye to eye on because I thought this was hilarious. And I think I remember you hated this one.
I thought you hated it too when you saw it.
No. I thought it was hilarious. Well, maybe not the whole storyline. Like, I did think it was a bit, I don't know, a bit silly that they were fighting over the bonsai tree or whatever, and they went in the holodeck and did the Mark Twain thing. At first, I was like, yeah, it was mildly funny, but when they took that alien who was like threatening to kill him and put him up in the Mark Twain thing, I was laughing my ass off. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, that's the one of the single most dumbest things. It was a bit too far. Like, I suspend a lot of disbelief for Lower Decks, but the fact there's too much I had to suspend disbelief for, that this alien, aggressive alien, would agree to beam up. Like, why would he agree to beam over first of all, and then agree to go in the holodeck and agree to dress up in this silly costume that he has no idea what it is? There's 0% chance of happening, and I cannot suspend disbelief for it. And I just was so stupid. It was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. That was not even a little funny. The first one that did it was fine. The one where Rutherford and Boimler did it, I was like, I mean, I didn't think it was hilarious. But it was like, oh, okay, that's cute and whatever. But then having the alien come over and like the fact that they would convince him to put in the market, and that was the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess everyone has what they're willing to suspend disbelief for. I can't remember, but I think there was another joke that I wasn't willing to suspend disbelief for that you were. But this one, for some reason, I'm willing to go with it. I'm willing to just hand wave it to Lower Decks as just being Lower Decks and silly. In fact, I think if they're going to go this way, they should have went even further and have the twinning thing with the alien actually work. I thought that would have been even funnier. but that's just me.
Yeah, I do want to respond. I responded to Brandon in the chat, but I want to respond to him verbally. Yet that alien was I can't remember the species. I always forget the species name, but it was one of the dudes who was captured with Picard in Allegiance, Esok. And they give us food to make him a threat. There's like called the chur. It starts with CH or something like the chur. I don't know. I forget. But
I didn't recognize them until you pointed it out in your review.
I didn't either because I watched someone else's review pointed it out. Like, I didn't recognize it on my own. I did. They did look familiar. I was like, "What species is that?" But there was a different review that pointed that out to me.
I do say. Anyway.
Yeah.
I like how they brought it back for the finale too. Yeah. Anyway, but I don't think they're going to bring back the twinning anymore. I think that's the thing.
Yeah, when they brought it back for the finale, I was like, okay, that's fine. They're bringing stuff back, as long as they never do it again, which they won't because it was a season 4 thing.
Yeah. All right, so the next episode, in Pathological Fallacies, with the 3 Betazoid, well, they turned out to be like working for an intelligence agency, but they were like debutantes or something, and they call them something like that. They were. This might be my favorite episode of the season. This is another one I rewatched yesterday. I absolutely love this episode because, well, it's a Talin focused episode first of all, and I like the character Talin. I like what they did with her, and I love like the concept of the Betazoid just drinking and coming from Angel One, having a hat that said his Romulan ale o'clock somewhere, stuff like that. Like, I thought that was all hilarious, and but then having Talin being so like, it just really dealt with her whole storyline about wanting to just go back to the Vulcan ship because her previous appearances, she made it clear that she didn't really want to be there and she just wanted to go back. And this was sort of her learning to accept the Cerritos storyline, how she had like Bendai syndrome, which don't look too much into that, but but that was the actual thing that was causing everyone to act crazy. And I loved all the jokes with everyone like going insane, especially like my favorite moment maybe the whole season of Malo freaking out over this doesn't taste like it was regurgitated from my mother's mouth. How dare you replicate it? And he brings out his face. He's like, die, replicate it. And starts shooting it. And at the end of the episode, he's like beating the hell out of the replicator, and then like Talin's thing wears off and everyone returns to normal. He just looks around and goes, woo, and whistles and walks away. That was hilarious. But then you get, so the storyline with Talin and Mariner, and of course Mariner apparently when she was drunk or affected by the thing, her thing is to swear like every other word, and how they bleep it out, and it's like, you're Vulcan as fuck, you're having like Spock's dad is Vulcan as fuck. And oh, for that logic, I must be Vulcan as fuck as well. Like stuff, and just the character interactions between the two of them I thought played out really well. The B plot with Boimler playing, like, doing puzzles and slam poetry with the security team, I wasn't that big on. That was okay. I did like the payoff for it at the end of the episode where they were, the security team was fighting the Betazoid women, and that one person did the slam poetry. It's like, how come I can't read your mind? Because slam poetry, and she's able to go everywhere like that. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, just some of the jokes in this I thought were hilarious, particularly with when they almost went to the Ramen neutral zone. They turned the ship around at the last second, and you saw the Ramens go, oh! For some reason, I was laughing my ass off at that. So yeah, I actually really loved this episode. It might be my favorite one of the season.
Yeah, I think I love it as much as you do, but I have one episode I ranked a little higher that we'll get to later. But yeah, I love it, and I love Big Liam so much. He is such a great character. He's such great comic relief. But yeah, my main thing with this episode is we get our first Talin-centric episode since Wage Douche, and I loved it. I want more Talin in season 5. I was complaining after this. There is episode 6, 7, and 8. No Talin, and I was complaining about it each week. No Talin again. This week, this episode was a great story arc for her, as you said, as she is, struggling with this. She always wanted to go back to the Vulcan ship, and in the end, there's somewhat of a resolution. Although the final resolution comes in the finale. Where she definitively decides she's definitely not going back to the Vulcan ship. But she definitely makes the choice here as well. And I liked following that story, and I love the interactions with her in Mariner. And we got her and Boimler a couple episodes earlier, but it was her playing off of Boimler. And I think in most of her episodes this season, she is playing off of someone else, and she's good in that role. I love the sassy Vulcan, and she's good playing off of other people. But here was more Mariner playing off of her, and Mariner supporting her, and I loved it. I thought it worked really, really well. Yeah, the Boimlers, again, Boimler, king of the B-plots. I think it was okay. But I just based off of and plus the concept of the partying Beta Z women who are kind of like sort of a playoff of Waxana Troy, and they kind of at first make you think that they're doing the Waxana Troy thing from that terrible episode in Deep Space Nine that I hate. But the misdirect that they weren't doing that, and they turn out to be these spies. I love that. I love that. I love what they do. I love how they use the Betazoid women here. So there's a lot to love in this episode.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, and this will come up a bit later in the season, I like when Captain Freeman's a badass, when she actually, is a good captain, how she outsmarts the Betazoid women and get them to go fighting amongst themselves.
Norman, I know what the name of the episode is. I was doing a it shall not be named. Like I was intentionally not naming it.
Let's see. Oh yeah, and Redneck Lover 22 says the two guys kissing over and over again was great, overcompensating, but great. I didn't even notice that till like I examined the scene. It's like just subtle in the background.
Yeah, as I recall, this was the episode where people were making the big about the character in the background wearing the
Yes.
hijab.
Yes.
But what was interesting to me is that a lot of the screenshots that I saw of, oh, look, there's this character in the background wearing the hijab and people making a big deal out of it, also has the two guys kissing in the background too, but nobody was making a big deal about that. So I thought, I was like, that's cool. I mean, you're halfway there. You're not making a big deal. You're making a big deal about the hijab, but
yes.
but
yeah. And another moment that I loved, it was kind of telegraphed, but it was like, I think when Freeman was being held, captive or on the bridge, and she said something like, "Oh, my crew is working very hard to save me right now," and then they flash to this scene where they're in the bar, like doing a human pyramid, when they're like, "Yeah," and they're all naked or whatever. I thought that was anyway predictable, but pretty funny.
Yeah. No, I love that too. Yeah.
Oh, do I sound fuzzy?
Yeah, I was trying to tell you this, Mark, right as we went on, and then we became live right away. But yeah, there's this. I was just watching your Sherlock Holmes review. What do you call that episode?
Elementary Dear Data.
Yeah, right before we came on, and I noticed the same thing. It's like sound that happens.
Oh, is that happening now? God damn it! Yeah, it's very annoying. I think I just got to try to jiggle my plug. I think it's a problem with the outlet in the computer for the microphone. Hopefully it goes away. Have you been hearing it throughout the stream?
I don't know. I haven't been noticing all throughout the stream, but I haven't been listening for it because we were talking. But I did notice it when Alyssa just pointed it out.
Yeah, that is very annoying. Hopefully you jiggling it right now, so hopefully it should be good. For Mark looks fuzzy, but that's always a good thing. I look fuzzy?
I don't think you look fuzzy.
maybe he's just talking about my hair. I don't know. Anyway, no, the computer reception. So, all right. So what are we up to now? We're up to
Parth Ferengi's Heart Place.
Parth Ferengi's Heart Place. Yes. Yeah. This episode's all right. I don't know. Yeah, I thought it was okay. The Mariner stuff, I wasn't a fan of at first because I thought they were being repetitive with her not liking her promotion. But then them following up on it later, I think, to me, justified it. That is, that they made it make sense for her character arc as a whole. So I look differently looking back at this episode in retrospect, that and how it was described to me that, even though she came to terms with not trying to sabotage herself in episode 2, that she still doesn't sit, something inside of her doesn't sit right with her because of the backstory we get in episode 9. So it's manifesting itself in different ways, and it's causing her to be reckless in this episode. So in retrospect, I think it's okay. I don't know how big of a fan I am of it. I mean, it's kind of funny at times when, like, she purposely, like, they have the Ferengi biker gang or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, I'm just here having a drink with my friends. Please don't cause any ruckus." She's like, "Oh, let's go!" And she purposely, like, antagonizes them. So that was kind of funny. The storyline with Rom, I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan of it. To me, it didn't seem in character for Rom. I know the counter argument is that he's a Grand Nagus now. He has to act very Ferengi-like, but his whole... I guess I've never been comfortable with him becoming Grand Nagus because his whole character arc through the second half of Deep Space Nine was about how he wasn't a typical Ferengi, and that's why he was chosen as Grand Nagus, because they needed someone who wasn't a typical Ferengi, but he needs to kind of act like typical Ferengi. I talked about in my review how I thought there was a novel that handled Rom's characterization has Grand Nagus better than I think this episode did. And Lita seemed a bit out of character as well, I guess, but she's, the first whatever of the Ferengi culture. And Ferengi joining the Federation seems, I don't know, that seems rather sudden, even for the time period Lower Decks is. That I don't know, that seems really off to me as well. But whatever, I didn't have that big of a deal with it. What was the other storyline? Boimler sitting in the that was okay. And the Tindy Rutherford thing. That was actually probably my favorite aspect of the episode.
Yeah.
Of the on and off again sort of released what they had, and they kept it. At first they were like, "Oh, we're married," and they were making a big joke and having fun with it, and then it started getting personal, and then it would show them blushing, getting really embarrassed. It got really ridiculous towards the end, where the Ferengi are like, "Oh, you're not just pretending to be a married couple, because then you'll spend the rest of your life in the mines or whatever." I mean, that was a bit ridiculous, but it was still kind of funny. I did like with their relationship. I guess I want to start with that. Do you actually want to see these two get together in the future? Because at first I was thinking I did, but now when I think about it, that might seem off since they're such good friends.
I want to see a resolution to this will they, won't they bullshit, one way or the other, and I want it to make sense. So if they were able to find a way to get there naturally, where they do naturally develop a romantic relationship from their friendship, I am totally okay with it. But before the series is over, I think I want, okay, we are definitely friends, which some people did read it that way. There were some reviews that I saw where they read it that way. Oh, they're definitely friends. But then there's that little tease at the end where they were kind of basically looked like they were having sex in the Jeffrey's tube or whatever. So I don't think that's been definitively resolved, and I would like a definitive resolution by the end of the series, one way or the other. And I don't care which way they go as long as it makes sense.
Well, I interpreted that scene a bit differently. Like when it looked like when they were fixing something, it looked like they were having sex. I thought that was there to illustrate that they're comfortable with each other and being close with each other without having with just being friends, though.
Yeah. I mean, the episode also hinted that they do, there is something there for each other.
Yes.
So I don't mind which way they go as long as it makes sense. That's where I'm at on this.
Because I think you and I like the Odo and Kira pairing, but I think there's some people who hated it, who thought that they worked better as friends, and then it just seemed off, the two of them being together.
No, they were planting the seeds so that way back when. I noticed when I did my rewatch for Visionary, which was in season 3, they were planting seeds for that. So they were planting seeds for that for a long time, but they didn't do the annoying will they, won't they. It was just kind of very subtle. So that's why that worked really well.
The writers, themselves said that it wasn't intentional, like they weren't purposely trying to set them up, but they noticed the natural chemistry that was emitting from the two characters, and then went with it and built off of it.
Yeah, because they did have natural chemistry, and that's what worked. So with Rutherford and Tindy, I guess I would only want them to go that way if it's something like that, where they're building off of natural chemistry, and it's the natural evolution of their friendship is to go there. But if you're going to force it just to get them together, then I'm going to hate that.
Just don't have Vic Fontaine be the one to introduce. God damn it.
But anyways, did you have more to say in this episode? Because
no, you go ahead. Yeah,
my thoughts on this episode.
Yeah.
As I said in my review, this is my favorite Ferengi episode of all time. But the bar is very low for that, because I hate almost all Ferengi episodes. But what I liked about this one is that while it still kept their capitalistic nature, which is central to them, it explored different facets of the Ferengi culture. We actually got to see different things on Ferenginar. The Ferengi biker gang, just as one example. I mean, a nice biker gang, actually. So I love how they made the Ferengi culture a little more nuanced, even if it was still centralized around this idea of capitalism. Um, so that's kind of why it's my favorite Ferengi episode. Um, I like the Rom storyline. I think that Rom was established in the opening scene with that little ship thing. I guess we now know Nick Locarno's little ship comes in. That at the beginning they're going, oh, Rom is making us get rid of all of these. We're not allowed to sell disruptors anymore, and like that's bullshit. We can get so much profit from selling disruptors. So right at the very beginning, you see that Rom has made some changes, and the fact that he is even willing to talk about it, seriously talk about entering the Federation, huge change. So Rom has definitely made some changes, but he can't be Grand Nagus and not still keep some of the Ferengi values. And so I had no problem. In fact, quite enjoyed the Rom storyline. And the biggest thing I enjoyed about it is that Freeman was a badass. Freeman was smart. Like I love that whole theme this season that they actually made Freeman a good captain, and she continues to make smart decisions. That Admiral, in the meanwhile, I don't know how many episodes he's been in, but I will always think of him as the guy who said sensors in the first season. I don't think he's been in too many episodes since then. Maybe he appears every once in a while, but
I know. Well, he was in the finale as well.
Yeah, this year. But I mean,
this year.
I mean, between when he said sensors and this episode, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think he popped up like once or twice.
Yeah, I think he pops up occasionally. But yeah, so he was an idiot. But I love that Freeman was actually smart. So that's mainly what I like about that episode or that storyline. And yeah, the Rutherford and Tindy thing, I agree with you. Get a little bit ridiculous at the end. That was very sitcom-y where that other couple like gets taken off the prison.
Yeah. And they had like the booth that like they had to eat naked chocolate versions of themselves and say something sexy about it every time they ate something.
Yeah, it got to be a little much, but yeah, I overall enjoyed that storyline. I think I liked the Boimler TV thing more than you did. I remember you complaining about, well, why would Ferengi have two-dimensional TV? When they have hollow novels are novels. This is like TV. And plus, I guess I'm willing to suspend disbelief here where I wasn't with the fact that an alien captain would agree to go on a holodeck and dress up like Mark Twain. The fact that still dimensional TV, I didn't even occur to me that should be a problem. I have no problem with that. And I thought it was hilarious that they had landlord cops that she didn't pay her rent. And you're rooting for the landlord cops and you're Ferengi, because that was great. And then how Boimler kept getting obsessed with, what is this product placement? What? They're having a commercial inside of the episodes? And then I did not notice this, but I think it was on Trek Culture. They pointed it out that as Boimler was saying, I can't believe they're actually advertising for the inside of the episode. Behind him, there's a painting that looks exactly like the Paramount.
Oh, right, yeah.
Over it, which I didn't catch when I first watched it. So I actually thought all that was really hilarious. Like, I'm disappointed Boimler doesn't have more important things to do in an episode, but I did enjoy the storyline. And I haven't talked about the Mariner storyline yet, which I think was meant to be the A plot. And yeah, I never really felt that her storyline was resolved in that she's self-destructive, because that seemed to be an ongoing thing that they had talked about since the first season, that is a thing that that's why she was been in Starfleet for so long and was still an intern, because she had been promoted a few times and kept getting demoted again. They had talked about that as early as the first season. So to me, this was an ongoing thing, and I didn't. While the scene with her and Ransom in episode 2 was really heartfelt and touching, I didn't think that was the end of it. And there were other like YouTube channels where they felt like well, didn't that kind of wrap that up? Why are we still doing this? Where that didn't even occur to me. So I actually thought it was a really strong character episode for Mariner, which does continue on into future episodes in the season. So I really like this episode. I think I might have given it a 9. I don't know, but I did really like this episode.
I think her self-sabotaging, purposely trying to get demoted, I think that was resolved in episode 2, but I think her uncomfortableness with being promoted was still there, and it was still manifesting itself in different ways. In this case, with her being reckless.
Yeah. See, I didn't think that was resolved in episode 2 either, but that's just how I read it.
Yeah. I mean, well, like in retrospect, that's how I'm looking at it. Like how, knowing what I know with the finale, because she did stop trying to purposely get demoted after episode 2, but in this episode, she's not purposely trying to get demoted. She's just being very reckless.
Yeah.
So I think it just mutated and was, manifesting itself in different ways.
Yeah.
But with you bring up the Captain Freeman thing, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, I also loved how she was the smart one, how she figured it out that this stupid censor. I always call him the censors guy too. Are you making fun of me? So I like how he was the idiot and she was the one who was smart the whole time, and she figured it out, and that she earned Rom's respect. So I did like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like this episode as much as you, though. I think I'd give it more of a 7 or an 8. But
I might have given it an 8 or 8.5. I don't remember. I don't know what I gave it.
I thought you gave it a 9.
Yeah, maybe I did. I don't remember. Yeah.
All right, so let's get to the next episode, A Few Badgies More, and has this so when I first saw this episode, I was turned off. I was mixed because it brings back 3 characters. One of them I love and I wanted to come back, and I think is one of the best characters ever. The other 2 I did not like, and so I was very mixed on that. But in retrospect, like as I said, I watched this last night, and actually my opinion on this episode went up, because I am actually not bothered by Badgie in this episode at all. I would have to rewatch the season 1 episode to find out why I hated Badgie so much. I think maybe it just came off wrong or silly over the top in that episode, how it was supposed to be like a play on Clippy, but instead he's like, I want to kill you, which I don't know. That seems a bit off. Where here but it's just like the other computer program in the season 3 finale that wanted to kill Rutherford because they thought it was his father. It seemed like this is a trope that they're doing. But I like the stuff they did with Gucci and Logic. I thought that was funny. The Rutherford's tactic was to try to separate them, or try to get Badgie to see the goodness, but Badgie's response was to separate them out. So I kind of like that. I think the ending where he ascends and becomes God is like, oh, none of this is meaningful anymore. Why am I wanting to kill everyone? I don't know if that really sat right, but it was okay, I guess. And then, of course, they bring back the koala once again. And that was okay, but I think I definitely like the storyline of Agnes a lot. Everything about it was hilarious. The more I think about it, the more hilarious jokes they had at the center, where they had that other evil computer going, I've conquered self-doubt and whatever, stuff like that. I thought was absolutely hilarious. And then having Agnes trying to turn blue to look good, and the way he would go whenever he turned blue, I thought that was absolutely hilarious. It was like, look, can't you see I'm reformed? I'm blue. And the boy was like, oh, the blue light is kind of soothing. But I did like that Boimler was kind of ahead of him the whole time, that he never bought for a second, that he was just stringing him along in order to get the information out of it. Now, the PM Hamper stuff, all right, so this is sort of the conclusion I came to, because at first I was kind of pissed off at the fact that last season they had the peanut hamper episode where she had an entire redemption arc, and at the end of that episode they're like, psych, I'm still evil. And then in this episode, oh, now all of a sudden she's redeemed. What the actual fuck? But I kind of, in my mind, justify that as I'm angry at last season's episode. And it's not really, I guess it's the fault of this episode for building off of that, but I don't know. To me, it doesn't sort of active, like Peanut Hamper didn't seem that terrible in this episode to me. I'm still just kind of pissed off at what they did the previous season with that fake out of being redeemed and not. So really, I justify that as my anger at that episode and not this one. So, but it does remind me of that episode, which is not a good thing. But I still ultimately think this was a really, really funny episode. And yeah, and then you had the storyline. I think Boimler and Tindy was an interesting team up. And I did like how Boimler was sort of ahead of Agnes the whole time, but Tindy was like playing with sandcastles and just didn't give a shit the whole time. So yeah, I actually quite like this one.
I never was bothered by Badgie as much as you were, and I never had a problem with Badgie. So I always enjoyed the Badgie storyline in this episode, especially the logic-y, the good-y. I loved all that. I'm kind of meh on the ending as well, but it was fine. If this episode was just Badgie one plot, Agamus alone on the other plot, it would be like a 9 or a 10 for me. But it is we'll talk about Agnes first because I agree with everything you said about Agnes. Agnes was great. I love that they brought this character back. I love Jeffrey Combs. I want to see Jeffrey Combs in live action next. I want to see him back again in live action. But I love him, and I agree. I loved how Agnes was like to turn himself blue, and in the end, he really did turn blue, and that's really the only benefit of having Peanut Hamper in this episode, I suppose, is because of how she helps Agnes's storyline there. I would have rather they've used a different character. Here's the thing, I do not hand wave or dismiss what they did, and I do not only blame last season's episode. I am pissed at this episode because they had their chance to give Peanut Hamper a redemption. So after last year's episode, that's it. She's irredeemable. You have proven she is irredeemable. If she can live in that bird planet and live with all those bird people and fall in love with the bird guy and still be the same exact character and have no character growth, you have proven she is irredeemable. So then the following season to just have her be redeemed for no reason out of the thin blue sky, off screen she had a redemption apparently. That is salt on the wound from last year's. That actually retroactively makes last season's episode even worse, for one thing, but also makes this storyline terrible. Now I can see why they did it because it works for Agnes's storyline, but the ship has sailed for Peanut Hamper getting a redemption arc. You definitively said she's irredeemable after last year's episode. And so you can't just have her just suddenly be redeemed for no reason off screen. So I'm still pissed off of that, still irritated by that. So I think I ended up landing on a 7 for this episode simply because of the storyline. Otherwise, this would have been at least a 9 without that storyline. Because I did love the Agnes and I love the Badgie.
Yeah, I think they kind of wrote themselves in the corner though, because they set it up as sort of Agnes and Peanut Hamper pairing.
Yeah,
this year's episode, and if all of a sudden she was just gone, it would seem a bit off.
I wouldn't have minded it, but you're right.
And I think
it seemed off, but I wouldn't have cared.
And I think ultimately they just used her as a tool for Agnes' storyline, which I think is actually the best they could have done with her, because don't focus on her because she sucks.
I do like that she forwarded Agnes' storyline, but I'm really irritated that they've had her go through all that stuff in the previous season and she can't be redeemed, and now all of a sudden she's redeemed for no reason. Like, no, that I can't. That I will never be okay with that.
No, that's totally fair. All right. All right. So the next episode is Caves. I'm like, I don't know. This episode was probably the most mediocre episode that all season is one of the most mediocre. I mean, I didn't hate it, but it's just like, yeah, don't really have much to say about this one. They're all hanging out in caves and telling stories about caves. And I tried to think about, because I think it was Norman who made a comment on my video naming a whole bunch of Star Trek episodes that took place in caves, and there were a lot. But I was trying to think of one where they actually got trapped in the cave and they got caved in, and I didn't know if I could really think of any. Maybe like one or two. They usually just go to caves. I don't think they usually get trapped there, and this episode seemed to imply they're always getting trapped in caves.
I don't know if it implied they always get trapped in caves. I don't know, but that is definitely something they did. Trek Culture recently did a top 10 caves episodes.
Oh, they did,
and some bad ones too. Like they put like Partrusian or whatever. Like,
oh really? Oh my gosh!
They picked some really bad game, but there was, I can't remember which ones now, but there was at least one or two on there where characters were trapped in caves. So it has happened. And I don't remember. I think in Waltz, I don't think Ducat and him in Cisco were trapped in the cave, but they were trapped on that they were stranded on that planet.
Yeah,
they were in a cave. But yeah, I think you're right that they don't probably actually have a lot of trapped in caves, but they do have a lot of cave episodes. Like a lot.
Yes. I do like the joke they said is like, oh, how come all these caves seem to look the same? Sort of the meta joke on how they use the same cave set all the time over and over again. Like that I think was an app joke and really funny. But like Mariner hanging out where they're making friends with Delta Shift, or was it not? Is it Delta Shift? Yeah. I never cared about Delta Shift. That like they only touched on that like a couple of episodes, and every time they bring it up, I'm like, I don't know. That's not something I was really interested in. And was it Rutherford? I think Rutherford having a baby, I think, was a direct parody off of that stupid Enterprise episode with Tucker.
It's funny because I hate that episode, but it didn't occur to me that they were doing that.
Oh, really? I think they did some sort of joke, and I love how in that scene they never bring up the fact that that he's a man giving birth. That's never brought up.
Right, and that's why I hated that.
Yeah. Yes, god damn. And what was the Boimler one?
Boimler was what's the guy's name?
Oh, the conspiracy theory guy.
Yeah, I got it down after that episode. I was calling him by his name, and now I'm blanking on it again. Yeah, the conspiracy theory guy. Now I like the Boimler thing. I like the. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It didn't sit right with me that the conspiracy theory guy turned out to be right, because at first he seemed to be a play off of like the QAnon and crazy conspiracy people things. And so for him to be right doesn't sit right with
me. But he was only right about that one thing, and Boimler it's not like Boimler was like, oh, you must be right about everything.
Yeah, that's true.
So like you're still a nut. And even he was surprised that he was right. Like, oh, I might be right about this.
Oh, and apparently he had a lot of the details wrong as well.
Yeah, he had a lot of the details wrong.
But
yeah, well, we haven't talked about yet what I most disliked about this episode.
The fact that they're saying that, oh, we have drifted apart. We don't really hang out anymore. And what?
Since when? Since when did you stop hanging out? Since when did you drift apart? Well, I went a step further, and I found it hard to believe that each of them would have had these huge adventures. Like maybe the Boimler with the conspiracy theory guy, maybe that would slip his mind. But Rutherford didn't tell Tindy that he gave birth. Are you fucking kidding me? There's no % chance of that happening. And the Delta shift, I mean, they had been rivals all this time, and for the Mariner to like reach an understanding with them and a connection with them, she wouldn't tell anybody that bullshit. Like I think I did not buy the premise of this episode that they wouldn't tell each other these stories. Like there has been zero evidence in the show that they would ever do that. So we're being told, oh, we've drifted apart, we're having these adventures and not telling each other about it. We're told that, but we've never been shown that. I've never seen any evidence that they would ever do anything like that. In fact, all the evidence that I have seen for 4 seasons is that they absolutely would tell each other about those things. So I think that was my big hang up on this episode.
Yeah, that bothered me too. I think it bothered me more when you pointed it out. Like, I don't know if I really noticed it when I was watching it, but as soon as you pointed it out, I'm like, yeah, they've never been shown to be drifting apart. What the hell is this?
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and move to the next episode. The Inner Fight, which has nothing to do with the inner light, but the Inner Fight is kind of an apt title for this episode. I think I like this episode a lot more, examining it in retrospect. I watched this again, and I do think this is one of my favorites of the season. It deals directly with Mariner's. All right, well, before I get into the episode, let me ask, because you just brought up the issue with caves and how they're acting like they've never been together, but they were throughout the episodes. I had the same feeling with this thing about, Mariner's been being reckless and suicidal ever since the Ferengi episode, but it seems like the 2 episodes in between she wasn't. And that, do you agree, disagree, or...
I didn't even, to me, I watched your review and you brought that up, and I hadn't even noticed that they pointed specifically to the Ferengi episode until you said that. So I had read it as she has been doing it for a little while, like off screen. I wasn't thinking about that it happened since the Ferengi episode. And to me, it didn't bother me the way that the Caves episode bothered me, because from the very beginning we see her behavior. Like we see an example of that in the cold open. So I read it as, okay, so this is a thing that has been happening even before this. But now we've seen it. I've been shown it, so I'm okay with it. To me, the line that has been happening since the Ferengi episode, I didn't even notice it. And once you pointed it out, I can, whatever. That line, I can dismiss that line because I think to me, I read it as the point is she's been doing it before this episode, which is fine. Like that was the first time that she did it.
They did mention specifically ever since she went down to Ferenginar.
Yeah, but did they say that she's been acting just like that since? I think that
she's been reckless and with her life, and
yeah, I didn't. I guess I saw it as like she's been behaving weirdly since then, but I didn't think that she had been as extreme reckless as since the Ferenginar. That's not how I interpret it.
On Ferenginar, she was pretty, extreme and reckless, and in this episode, she was pretty extreme and reckless. But the 2 episodes in between, she seemed to be fine. So that's
I don't know. I guess this doesn't bother me. I don't know. I kind of said that. She's been acting this way for a little while. Whatever. Like I don't know.
It doesn't bother me too much. It's just a minor nitpick. But anyway, So I like the sort of trick of this episode, how they try to trick Mariner into, oh, this mission's going to be so dangerous. And she's like, Yahoo! And they go there and she's like, what? This is boring. And I'm like, no, look at the storm over there. But then it actually does end up being dangerous, and it actually feeds into the season-long arc, how apparently all the people from the ships who weren't joining Nick Locarno were deposited on this planet. It seems like a wild coincidence. It just happened to go to the planet where those people are, but that's all good.
Well, I think that satellite thing or whatever was damaged because of
because of what they were doing. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. But it just so happens to be they wanted to go to that particular
whatever. There's a lot of coincidence.
Yeah, no, it's fine. But yeah, and then the whole storyline with Mariner, I think, was very strong. Her seeing that Klingon guy who was in Wage Douche and sort of their interactions, I thought were amazing. And this is when she's really come to the realization of that she has been self-destructing, and it has to do with her trauma over being in the Dominion War and losing Cedo at such a young age. I do like that. At first, I was like, when they brought it up, I was like, oh, does this really match up? And it does. And so I was like, okay, it actually makes sense. Now, I've heard the opinion that this is, and this, I don't know, people always say this about Lower Decks, but it's just this shameless nostalgia baiting or whatever, and I don't agree with that. I think this is actually using a storyline wisely from the past, and I like how they tie it into Trek that we're already familiar with. I think you don't have to avoid any previous established shows, for the newer shows, and if you reference anything at all, then you're nostalgia baiting. I think that's bullshit. I think as long as you use it correctly, which I think this was used correctly, and and then the whole storyline with them teaming up and conquering the Klingon ship and taking them over, this is all pretty exciting, good stuff. Now the storyline with Freeman going to the criminal world and fucking up every time, this bothered me until I saw the twist ending. And once I saw the twist ending, I was like, oh, that makes sense. And then I liked it. And it's completely justified, because I was like, why is Freeman being so stupid? Why is she blatantly wearing the Starfleet uniforms, blatantly going there to piss everyone off? But then I realized she purposely did that as a ploy to get Billups, who was dressed up as this evil bounty hunter, to actually slide in. And she said that, I used their own prejudice against him. And again, this is Freeman being awesome, which is what I love. I love this season is actually making Freeman a good captain. I didn't like in previous seasons when she did some really stupid things. So I actually ended up really liking that. And plus the part where they had that guy that kind of looked like the thing from the puppet from Cobra Knight Maneuver, and she's like, it's a puppet! Shake. It's not actually a puppet. That was actually hilarious. But anyway, your thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, the more and more I thought about this episode, the more I loved it, and more I think it's probably my favorite of the season, and mainly because of the Mariner, and I should figure out this dude's name, the Klingon guy. That scene was just heartwarming, and it made sense. It was in character with the Klingon guy from what we had seen from him before, that he would react in that way. And I love finally getting him connecting with one of our main characters, because we've seen him before, and Tallinn got to connect with our main characters, and he hasn't. And then how when he was like, no, we must continue our fight, and Mariner gives him a hug. I love that. That's so sweet. I really touched my heart. I really enjoyed all that, and I thought that this was kind of a satisfying, at least partial answer to the season-long mystery. We don't get the full answer here yet, but we had already got it confirmed that they weren't really dead, but we do actually get to see at least parts of the crews on this planet and just kind of thrown together. So I actually like that, and I like that our lower deckers come and they're able to get them to work together. First episode with Talen since episode 5. So she sat out 3. I can keep pointing this out, 3 freaking episodes, and I was like, where have you been, Talen? I love having her back again. She's more playing off of other characters, and I do want to see more featured Talen in season 5. But I did really enjoy her in here, and her and Mariner have a little bit of a moment where they both realize that they were both in that Battle of the Pack-Leads, and like, oh, you were both there? You were there too? Like, I kind of want the Klingon guy to come back and for them to all realize, like, oh, in that one episode, we were all kind of in the same place. But, so yeah, all of that was good. The Freeman storyline, yeah, I did also love that it's her being smart again. I kind of felt similarly. I was nitpicking it a little more, but it's not nitpicks that I care about that much. Like, why would Bilps be the bounty hunter? Like, wouldn't they get a security person to do that? Like, he's chief engineer, but whatever. But that's something Star Trek always does. And Rutherford being included on that way team because he's a main character, but also again something Star Trek always does. So I didn't have any real problems with the episode except for nitpicks with that. I mean, with the storyline. So that was actually really good. Very Star Warsy though. That's the bounty hunter that Bilps was pretending to be reminded me of a combination of a Star Wars bounty hunter and the Breen, who themselves are based on like a ripoff of the bounty hunter that Princess Leia dresses up as in Return of the Jedi. But the way he was talking, like rah, 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 it sounded like the Breen to me. So, but anyways, yeah, that I did like all of that stuff. Yeah, there wasn't really a whole lot about this episode I didn't like. Such a huge improvement over the previous season's episode 9 and Mariner story. That was definitely one of the down points of season 3 for me, was that stupid Mariner storyline in episode 9, the previous in season 3. Although I do think they recovered in episode 10 of season 3. I did like the ultimate resolution of it. But this year they don't have to recover from it. They just have a strong storyline from the beginning of episode 9. So yeah, I love this episode. I ended up settling on a 10, and the only 10 that I gave this season.
Yeah, no, I think, I don't know if I give it a 10, maybe I give it a 10. 9 or 10. I gave it an 8 originally, but I'm definitely going up to a 9. But yeah, no, I think this was a really good episode as well. So a few things in the chat I wanted to address. Redneck Lover 22 saying Picard season 3 was the ultimate in nostalgia baiting. Lower Decks is not like that. Absolutely agreed. 1000%. I don't think Lower Decks is anywhere near as bad as just being like, oh, look at this, like Picard season 3 was. I think that was the ultimate just nostalgia baiting. Let's see. And what was the other thing I saw? Someone's saying, oh yeah, Redneck Lover saying Mark would make a good Klingon. I don't think I would make a good Klingon.
No, Mark. Maybe aesthetically, maybe with the hair, but no.
Yeah.
And there's been all this conversation about Mrs. Slocum, and am I the only one old enough to know who that is? I don't know who that is. I'm almost 50. Who is Mrs. Slocum?
No, the answer is from a BBC show called Are You Being Served?
Oh,
never heard of it.
Never heard of it. Well, I never watched the BBC, so
yeah,
that's probably yeah. So it has nothing to do with age. It's whether you watch the BBC or not. Because I'm almost 50 and I've never heard of that.
Oh yeah, and then J. Keem in 99 saying that Klingons can be ship counselors. That asshole from the Sutherland was wrong. And that guy from the Redemption Part 2 who went to Data is like, I don't think I'm the right first officer for you. And he was saying that in the same way that Klingons shouldn't be ship counselor, android shouldn't be ship. Yeah, fuck that guy. That guy was just an asshole. And I totally didn't buy him, and I really hold it against that episode. He was unrealistically antagonistic. I don't buy that he would be a first officer in Starfleet.
Yeah, and he was too much like the guy who was acting like that to LaForge and Arsenal Freedom too.
Yes, Logan. Yeah.
No. I actually think a Klingon potentially could make a really good ship's counselor because they could like be a kind of a hard ass like counselor, like a tough ship's counselor that could be really effective.
Oh, Brandon's saying you'd make a great Klingon, right? No, Ark. No, I'm not violent enough. I don't want to kill everyone.
Not have enough honor to be.
I don't have any honor. Today is a good day to sit down and watch TV. Anyway, all right. So let's get to the final episode. Old Friends, New Planets. I want to start with a correction. Someone in the chat brought it up earlier because in my review, I said they were talking like it's whole in the flashback with Nova Squad. We got Wesley, we got Cito, we got the Josh character who died before we even saw him on first duty, and we got Nick Locarno, and they're acting like, oh, we're all Nova Squadron. And I was like, what about Cadet Hager? Because she was established to be as part of Nova Squadron, yet she wasn't there. But apparently, and I went back and watched this. Apparently, when I watched Paramount Plus, like when the episode started, does this thing where the pause button shows up and I can't see very well. And so it was covering a split second blink and you'll miss it scene where they show Hagar waving to the group and then running off. So she was in this episode technically, but whoop-de-doo. Anyway, I don't know. It still didn't seem right because they were talking. They were talking as if they were all Nova Squadron, but they were missing one person. But apparently she was at the starting wave. Why did they do that? Because all they have to do is animate her. It's not like they need to get someone to do the voice if she has no lines.
Yeah, I mean, they could have just had her stand there in the background. I think maybe they didn't want to have her unless she had speaking lines, and they couldn't get the original actress that probably doesn't even act anymore. They didn't want to do a replacement, and they didn't want to have her have no lines. I don't know.
I think it would have been fine to have a character there with no lines. I think that would make more sense than her just waving and walking off at the start of the scene. They could just have someone stand there in the background. Star Trek does it all the time with extras, but it's not like, and she didn't really have that many lines in First Duty anyway. But Cito, apparently the actress who played her, she did stop acting, and they went out of their way to get her back, and just so that she could do this couple lines in this episode. So that was cool. I loved the whole flashback. And it was cool seeing a young Mariner being sort of bright-eyed, and it did illustrate the difference between where she was when she was much younger and how she is now, and how the trauma affected her. I think that was nice. I do think that this, I wish they touched more on this and made it more relevant to the episode, but that's fine. It was still a great flashback scene. And I think I do like the interactions between Mariner and Nick Locarno. Although, I don't know, it sort of broke down. I thought it would go a bit differently than her just immediately being like, this guy sucks, and still on the Genesis device. But that was a great scene. I did like that a lot. And I think she would probably, and it's true to her character, I think she would probably suck as an undercover agent because she was acting like the way she was acting made it very clear. And Nick Locarno was actually being really stupid to not realize how obviously she didn't want to go along with him. And she's like, and he's like, how do I look? He's like, oh, you look something I can't remember, confident, but in a really creepy way. He's like, oh, that's exactly what I'm going for. And then something, I can't remember what he said. He said something like, she asked him a question. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to reveal this to you soon," and she's like, "Oh, that doesn't sound ominous at all." But so most of the episode seemed like it was just her like running from Locarno and his minions, which was okay. I do like the Star Trek 2 motif. They brought back the music and everything because they had the Genesis device. I think some of the jokes they were purposely doing because of the Genesis device now. Did appreciate that. I'm glad they didn't go full on and have like Mariner die or something like trying to emulate Spock's death, because that was already done in Nemesis. We don't need to do it again. But yeah, so it was a pretty interesting episode. And the other storyline we had, God, I can't even remember. I know that. Oh yeah, Freeman defying orders because she was ordered not to intercede. I did kind of like that, and I kind of like, even though it was tropish, I think they missed an opportunity for a good joke to make fun of like how everyone went along with them. I thought it would have been funny if one person being like, "No, I don't feel like going," and they're like, "Oh, whatever."
We kind of already did that with Peanut Hamper though, where she defied expectations by, "Oh, you can be our hero, you can save us." She's like, "No, I don't think so." So I feel like that would be sort of the same thing if they did.
I don't know. I think that would be different because Peanut Hammer, in that situation, she was the one person who could save them. Where here was just a group of people and everyone's.
Yeah, I mean, it's different, but it's the same, similar enough that I would feel it. To me, it would seem repetitive. But
really, not for me. I didn't even make that connection till you brought it up. I suppose. I don't know. It just seems different because it's a different thing than having one person in one group. Because this just annoys me. It's a trope in Star Trek how every time they have, "Oh, who wants to volunteer?" Anyone can back out and nobody backs out. I thought it would have been funny if they defied that trope for once instead of having everyone join.
Before you go on, can I comment on what you've talked about so
far? Sure.
There's a lot to cover in this episode.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to mention the flashback. I loved they did the flashback because it helped me actively appreciate episode 9 more, because and the fact that they had the Cedo reveal, which I forgot to mention when I was talking about episode 9, that did really work for me. And I think the flashback helped solidify that, because when they first did it, it was like, okay, they're putting Mariner in that, they're retconning her into that storyline. Where does she fit in? How did she fit in with those characters? And so this flashback gave me the visual for how Mariner, what her dynamics were with those characters, and that really helped me to accept the Cedo retcon even more. So I already was buying it, but it solidified it for me. So I'm glad that they did that flashback. Now, as far as Mariner, like running up and going, "This guy sucks," like, I mean, I kind of agree with you. Like, Locarno was stupid for not seeing that coming, and I just don't think Mariner would have been a very good undercover person, and that's just out of character for her. So for her to just go, "This guy sucks," I thought was much more in character for her. I don't think I would have bought it too well if she was trying to like pretend to be his friend, especially since she so obviously wasn't. So I kind of liked that they went in that direction. I was a little worried that they would go with the cliche trope where she pretends to be his friend, and then Freeman sees her on the screen and goes, "Oh no, Mariner's betrayed us," and blah blah blah. And I wouldn't have liked that. So I like that they went in the direction, and it made her was more within her character. And I also have to mention, because we forgot to mention this when we talked about episode 9, but how about bringing back Nick Locarno at all? Like, is this a character that anyone thought we would ever see again? And this is another bold choice by Lower Decks that I love. I love that they brought back the guy that Robert Duncan McNeil played before he played Tom Paris. And I love the Tom Paris jokes. I said in my episode 9 review that they have to do Tom Paris jokes in the finale. There's no way they can't do Tom Paris jokes. And of course they did. And it was so good where Rutherford was like, yeah, does they look like Tom Paris? And Boimler's like, I don't see it. And then like more stuff happens, like more plotty stuff, and like the ship happens, and then just Rutherford out of nowhere goes, no, really, they have the same face. And Boimler's like, I still don't see it. Like they had to do that. They absolutely needed to do that. So I applaud them for bringing back Nick Locarno out of all the characters, and also revealing that Thomas Riker is out there somewhere and still alive. And that was the previous episode. But maybe Thomas Riker comes back at some point. But yeah, so I loved all of that.
Yeah, I kind of wanted them to bring Thomas Riker back.
Yeah, he would have fit into this, but
yeah, I mean, he could have been like with Nick Locarno. I don't know.
Yeah, I think season 5 maybe we get Thomas.
Yeah, because it would be good to. Well, at least they answered this first time answered in canon that he's still alive, and they implied that he's free. So that's now officially canon. Yeah, bringing Nick Locarno back I thought was great. And yeah, I agree. They had to do that joke, and that joke was hilarious. I'm just not seeing it. Yeah, and I think it was interesting to get an answer of whatever became of him after he got out of Starfleet. And I think this is a believable one. And again, some people accuse this of being nostalgia baiting, but I don't agree. I think it was actually a smart move to tie this into the greater storyline. And I actually agree a lot with what you said about the flashback scene. I think it was great to put into context of what Mariner was like. Not only did it clear up her story in episode 9, but also showed the kind of how different she was when she was younger. It was interesting seeing that. But then, all right, and then they put Boimler in command as acting captain. I thought you seemed to imply that you didn't have a problem with this because it did the same thing with Geordi and Arsenal of Freedom. But I don't know. Boimler seems... I don't know. Geordi was always like a senior officer, though, always hanging out on the bridge. And I suppose lately Boimler has been.
Boimler has been too lately.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, I didn't have an issue with it. It just seems like there were people who were like, doesn't Barnes have like a higher rank than him? But I don't know.
I'm not sure. Barnes, I think, is also a junior grade lieutenant, but I could be wrong.
No, maybe. I don't know.
It could be a full lieutenant. Oh, there's tons of lieutenants and lieutenant ship who are ranked above them, but Star Trek has always done not just with Geordi, but I mean I think Harry Kim was sitting on the captain.
Yes.
Even though they weren't promoted.
Yeah, Harry Kim was considered a senior officer, yet there were plenty of people on the ship who had a higher rank than him.
Yeah. No, and Wesley got to sit in on that.
Oh, God, yes. No, Wesley was into this. But that was dumb. I always hated the Wesley.
The thing about Star Trek, you just got to accept, is that the order of ranks is who is the main characters, except every once in a while they step outside of that and put like Lieutenant LaSalle in charge or whatever. But typically the ranking order is who the main characters are. And that's been embedded in Star Trek, baked into Star Trek since the beginning. So it's just something that I just accept, and therefore I enjoy that they gave Boimler that moment, because I want to see Boimler get more moments where he gets to start building toward being a leader, a commander, and going on that path to being a captain. If they had him show up, Captain Boimler show up in Picard, I would have lost my shit. But I knew they weren't going to. But yeah, I like moments like that. And I like the little joke where he was like, I think it was Tindy who said like, "Oh, good captain voice." I was like, "Thank you."
Well, I did ultimately like it. Yeah. And yeah, as long I think they are sort of building, and again, if they continue to establish this character, I think that'd be great. Allison in the chat was quoting Brenna Brega saying, "Somebody has to be the ensign." If you don't know what I'm referencing, when the actor who played Harry Kim went to Brenna Brega, who was the showrunner of Voyager, and asked to be promoted, his response was, "Somebody has to be the ensign." What the hell does that even mean? Like, why does somebody have to be the ensign? That was the dumbest. I just posted something to my Facebook today that had like a guide to all the pips of what rank it is, and it had the 4 pips as captain. You saw that? And the 4 pips was captain, and the 3 pips commander, and the 1 pip was Harry Kim. It's there's just some things in Star Trek are becoming very memeable. The fact that Harry Kim was never promoted is one of them.
Yeah, so I'm glad that Lower Decks is not going that route.
Yes,
and promoting their characters. So I love it.
So the ending with the Genesis device, the Star Trek 2 motif, then I think I liked the Nicholas Locarno dying because the Ferengis put a paywall on the Genesis device. That was a funny gag, but it seemed to be sort of making light of his death. I don't know. So I thought it was okay. Like, I didn't think it was the greatest thing ever, but I did ultimately think it was better than last year's finale.
Yeah. I thought they were on par because I really liked last year's finale too, and I like this one too. So I thought they were both good finales.
Oh, well, shall we talk about the Tindy stuff? Because actually, now I'm thinking about it, that brings the episode down for me. But you said you didn't have an issue with that.
I have to comment real quick on what Norman Buckwald said. Well, Tom Paris was an ensign for a year. Tom Paris was an ensign, so there you go. Yeah, but then remember when he got re-promoted, and then Harry Kim was like, "Hey, you got a pip in that box."
Yeah, no, and Tom Paris got demoted and promoted, and Harry Kim still an ensign. That's bullshit.
Yeah, and in that episode, they gave Tom Paris a little box with this, and Harry Kim was like, "Got a little box for me." Like, they were making jokes about it. But anyways, we can move on.
We need to see a Captain Harry Kim in Modern Trek.
We do.
Yeah, somewhere in Modern Trek. Maybe he can show up like in Prodigy times. I think it would be Captain. But if he shows up in Prodigy, we should get a Captain there again.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, Tendy's storyline.
Oh, were you opening it for me?
Yeah, opening it. Yeah.
I thought you were going to talk about it first.
Well, I already pretty much said my thoughts on it. I just don't like it. I don't like what they're doing with their character. I don't like that they're making her the mistress of the winter solstice or whatever the hell.
Winter constellations. No, I don't love that they made her mistress of the winter constellations, and they made it so all the other Ryans go, "Oh, mistress!" Like, I don't like that at all, because again, to me, that is just rehashing the Billup storyline. So that I'm not a fan of. But this idea of her wanting to reconnect with her pirate past and being okay with it, and I think as long as moving forward, like, she doesn't just, if they just straight up turned her to a pirate and she put all her science stuff aside, I would hate that, but they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Lower Decks is better than that.
Yeah.
When I think about it, one of the things I really loved about Here All Trust Nothing is that she did accept her past as part of her identity, because that's something that I've struggled with a lot. And I think accepting your whole self, even parts of you that you want to forget or put aside, kind of touches a little bit on the message from Tapestry as well, like bringing in your full self. That is what I really liked about Here All Trust Nothing. So if they play it right moving forward, then I will be okay with it. And I think that knowing Lower Decks as I do, I think that they will play right. And I'm talking, of course, about the fact that she ends up going with her pirate family, which you seem to really not like at all.
Well, to be clear, I do like the "Here I'll Trust Nothing" plot. I do agree with you on that. I think that was nice of her accepting the part of her that she always rejected. It. I just think the making her this mistress or whatever is a bridge too far. I think I'm just not happy with that at all. She could have just made her a normal Orion pirate. Like her family just could have been a normal Orion pirate.
No, I agree with you on that. I don't love the Mistress of the Winter constellation bullshit. I get. It sounds like you're a lot more like it hurts the episode a lot more for you, or you're much more bothered by it.
Yes,
but I don't. I mean, it's not that I love it. It's just that I'm like, okay, whatever.
Well, I'm like, I don't know. I would be shocked if I like what they do in the next season with this. I don't like that they set this up as the major cliffhanger. Because I'd rather they not sort of go into the storyline because I don't like it, but they're making it like a major part of the show. That's what really bothers me. Well, not so much this episode, but the fact that they're setting up the next season to be all about this.
Well, I mean, this is the second time we've had a character leave the Cerritos at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And I think like that time, she'll be back in short order.
Oh, sure. But it's also like a bit repetitive too, since they already did it with.
Yeah, but this is different.
But this is a third time, or if you can't, I'm thinking of like Freeman getting arrested as a cliffhanger.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean like somebody
Mariner quitting, yeah.
No, Boimler going to the Titan.
Oh, I'm thinking of Mariner quitting. That wasn't the end of the season. That was
I mean, at the end of a season, Boimler goes to the Titan, and he starts off the next season with being on the Titan. So we're doing the same thing where Tandy goes off with the pirates, and we're going to start the season with her being a pirate. So that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
They're kind of doing that again. But here will be the key for me, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about this, but how Rutherford responds to this, because this is going to be important for how the Rutherford and Tindy relationship develops and what direction they take it in. Because you saw how it was kind of like a little sad how sad Rutherford was when Tindy left. So I am kind of interested to see what they're going to do with Rutherford without Tindy and how that's going to affect his character. So I think there's interesting things that they could do with that. So I think there's potential for them to, again, tie this back down to our characters and the heart that they have. And that's like the heart and soul of what Lower Decks is. So if they're able to use this storyline to tie that all together and make it about our characters and make it about Tindy and Rutherford, I think it's potentially could work well. There's potential for it to not work well as well, but I'm going to wait and see.
I mean, I'm sure if they did that, I would like that aspect of it. I just don't think I'm going to like the being an Orion princess aspect of it.
Yeah. I'm kind of in wait and see mode. I'm just kind of like, well, let's see what they do with this. There's definitely stuff they could do with it that I wouldn't like.
But I mean, you bring up the Boimler thing because that is probably the most similar because it was at the end of the season, the cliffhanger and the characters somewhere else. But it seems repetitive because it's also similar to Mariner leaving the ship in season 3, even though that only lasted one episode. It seems like they just keep coming back. And then Freeman got kicked off the ship at the end of season 2. It seems like they had to have this as a cliffhanger. It seems like they're just doing the same beats over and over again.
I don't know. I see the Boimler thing and the Freeman thing is different because it didn't happen at the end of a season, and then the next season begins with the character. So and Freeman didn't choose to leave like both Boimler and Tindy did. She got arrested. So I just
but that was at the end of the season.
Yeah, but it was a different thing. I don't think of it in the same.
I mean, as I said, the Boimler thing is definitely more similar, but I think they're all similar. And the Mariner thing's similar, just didn't happen at the end of the season.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that just makes it different to me because it was only a one episode. It wasn't like a cliffhanger for the next season.
It was a cliffhanger for that episode, but not for.
But then a week later, it's not like the next. It takes till the next.
Yeah, true. I don't know. It still seems to me that they're just repeating, like going back to the same well of, oh, this character has to leave the ship.
Yeah, I didn't think
So
about
is Rutherford going to leave the ship next? He's the one that's up next.
Yeah, I did mention in my review that there is a formula for their finales, and I didn't even think about that aspect of it, but that kind of is part of it too. But the formula usually is that it's a series episode, more action. There's comedy bits here and there, but it's not focused on the comedy. It's more of a straight up Star Trek episode. That's like virtually every finale has been that.
Yeah.
And there's always, at least since season 2, there or season 1 did this, but season 2 and 3 definitely did it, where there's always like the Cerritos strong, the Cerritos coming together, like we're all going to work together as a crew thing. That they do that every season finale as well. But I said that I think the formula works, so I'm okay with it. But in season 5, maybe not do that. Maybe do maybe try a different thing. I don't know.
No, I'm sorry. If they have Rutherford leave the ship, I'm just not going to be happy with
that. That would be a bridge too far. They have Rutherford leave the ship.
But Jake came in the chat, keeps pointing out that Worf left the ship at the end of season 4 of Next Gen, but that was Next Gen, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say they're paying homage to that, but I think that's totally different.
Yeah, no, I think that's a different thing.
But anyway, so I think that's about all I have to say about season 4. So now, overall thoughts on the season as a whole, your rating from 1 to 10 on the season 4 as a whole. I think I'm going to start, and I'm going to give it. I thought about this a lot, and I think I'm going to give it a 9, which is also what I gave season 3. I think this was. I just love seeing Lower Decks. I just love these characters, and even the episode's not that great. I just love being in this world, and I love the jokes, even if they don't always work. And I think for the most part, we had. I think. Even though there was no huge standouts this season like there were last season, I mean, I like the empathological fallacies ones, and I like the inner fight. But yeah, I don't think they were quite as good as some of the episodes in previous seasons. But I think this one was more consistently good. I think there were just a lot of funny jokes, strong episodes. There were some parts that I did have some issues with, but overall, I just enjoy watching this show. So we'll give it a 9, and for those keeping track, I gave season 2 of Strange New Worlds an 8. So I do think I would put this above season 2 of Strange New Worlds. But anyway, I
would agree it's the most consistent. This is the first season that didn't have an episode that I absolutely hated. All the previous seasons did. So it was more in the mediocre to pretty good range. So believe it or not, I also am giving this season a 9, which is also what I gave season 3. But the way that I think of it is like if I were to really get into the minutia and like really get season 3 would be like a 9.3, and this would be like an 8.9 that I'm rounding up. So I still have season 3 like slightly ahead of it. I didn't mean to make it sound like I like season 3 way more. My point was I was hoping season 4 would top season 3, and I don't think White gets there. But I think it's close. I think it's close, and I do end up giving them both a 9. But at the end of the when I rank things, like at the end of my of the year when I rank my top 10 of all the shows, like I'll have like 5 9s and I have to put them in order. And then I do the same thing. My Star Trek top 100, like at least the top 10, if not maybe even the top 15 or more, are 10s, and I have to rank them in order. So they're all 10s. So within like those ratings, like there is a little bit of minutia. So I still think season 3 is a little better, but they're both 9s. I had a higher opinion of Strange New World season 2 than you. I gave it a 9 as well.
Yeah.
So, To see which one is ranked higher, you're gonna have to wait till my end of the year. But they're both 9s. So yeah, another strong season of Lower Decks. I'm a little worried because of the actor strike and the fact that we had the writer strike that we might not get season 5 on time like we usually been getting it every year.
If I remember correctly, I think those strikes didn't affect animated shows. That animated have a different union.
Okay. Oh, so animated actors could still act?
Yeah, I believe so. I think, you know how they did the Star Trek Day and it only had actors from Lower Decks? I think that was why.
Oh, okay. And also, apparently, people on Saturday Night Live aren't considered actors because as soon as the writer's strike was back, they were back. Saturday Night Live.
Oh, really? Yeah, maybe they're part of a different union. Then.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. I just don't.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. Oh, and I have to point this out because I know that I'm probably alone in this. You guys are gonna think I'm stupid or just like, how did you not know this? But I was like 2 weeks ago years old when I figured out that Eugene Cordero, who does Rutherford, is also in Loki. Like I never.
Oh, really?
I was like, oh wait, that's Rutherford. Like for some reason, like I never made that connection in my.
When did you pick that up?
Like a couple weeks ago.
Oh, right. I remember noticing that in season 1. I was like, hey, it's the actor who does Rutherford.
Yeah, somehow I didn't realize it. I don't know.
Unless they're making him a more important character this season too.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, like, for me, I think for season 4, you said there was no like episode that totally sucked this season, but what would you think your least favorite episode would be? For me, it's
something green.
Yes, same thing for me. It was easily that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely my least. I thought it was okay though. I didn't think it was terrible. But
yeah, I actually think the Twaining stuff made it good. It made it better.
Yeah, no, I hated that.
But yeah, after that would be like the Caves episode because that was just mediocre.
Yeah, I probably would go in that direction too.
But the rest of them, I think, were really good to varying degrees. All right, cool. Allison saying, "Is that the pill boy from The Good Place?" I'm not caught up on Loki. Oh, it might be. I can't remember him from The Good Place. It's been a while since I've seen that show. I think it might have been in that too. Yeah, but I'd have to watch that again. Anyway, so thanks everyone for joining. Everyone who joined us in the chat, Brandon, Allison, Norman, J. Kamen, 99, and everyone else who was here. Thanks so much and of course, Bob. Thanks so much for popping in. And anyone watching us in the chat, maybe not commenting, or anyone watching in the archives, thanks so much for joining. And of course, thank you so much for special guest Alyssa. Thanks so much for joining for yet another Lower Deck Star Trek discussion.
Lower Deck.
All right, so if you want to give a quick shout out of what you're up to, where people can find you.
Yeah, come on over to Alyssa Jean's Reviews. I am wrapping up my Star Trek Top 100, and next Friday, this upcoming Friday, I will have my video for number 3. And Mark already knows what my number 3 is. So does someone in the chat. I'm not gonna or in the comments of my picture clue video. I'm not gonna say who, but somebody got the correct answer in the comments of I did a picture clue video last week. But anyway, number 3 is coming out, and also stay tuned the week after on the 17th. I'm going to do my wrap up for Modern Trek. I'm going to do my top 25 of Modern Trek because I am counting them separately from my Star Trek Top 100, which is the Legacy Trek. So I'm going to do my Modern Trek, and I've decided I'm also going to just go ahead and throw in my 5 worst into there too because I don't have time to do a separate video. So my 5 least favorite, a shit ton of honorable mentions, and then my 25 favorite Modern Trek episodes, November 17th. spoiler alert, very heavy on the lower decks. So there will be a lot of lower decks to be had in that top 25. Possibly one or two episodes that we talked about tonight could be in there as well. Might have stuck in there. So make sure you check that out. I'll see you all really soon on my channel, Alyssa Teens Reviews.
Brandon's asking when your live stream is going to be.
Brandon, you got to pay attention to it. It is next Saturday, the 11th.
Next Saturday.
Yeah, the 11th, 4 p.m. West Coast time, as per usual. So yeah, and I did put it in my calendar video, but I'll probably make another announcement video too, so everybody knows.
All right, so don't mean to put you on the spot, so you can choose not to answer this question if you don't want to, but are you still planning on like discontinuing your channel in the new year, like once the year is over, like not doing like weekly Lower Decks episode reviews or anything like that anymore?
I'm not taking my channel down. But I'm not making any plans to do any videos. What will happen is, one time I'll like all of this stuff I was building up that I really want to talk about, and I was like, hey, I'm going to do a live stream, and it'll be on Facebook, and I'll say I'm going to do a live stream randomly. I am also feeling like I'm probably going to want to do 1 or 2 videos on Discovery Season 5. I'm not going to cover every episode, but so the plan is, as of January, I have no plans to make any videos at all, but videos could be made when I feel like it. Like I could go, oh, I feel like doing this, or I feel like doing that. Right? I'm sure there probably are going to be live streams because I'm going to have things that I want to talk about, and I'll make an announcement. So you all should be on my Facebook page, because that's probably where the announcement will be made that I'm going to do a live stream. So yeah, no plans for anything, but things will probably happen is the answer.
So you're most likely not going to be like doing a week-to-week review anymore of any show.
No, I'm definitely, absolutely not doing any more week-to-week reviews. But some shows like Discovery, I will probably have to do like a mid-season review and an end-of-season review, or maybe just an end-of-season review, and then also come on with you and do a discussion. But I won't be reviewing it weekly.
Yeah. So you'll still be joining me for live streams.
Oh yeah, I'll be joining you for live streams. I always join you for live streams. I was joining you when I had no channel at all.
Yeah.
So I will. Yeah, the channel will still be up there. There was a time where I did something similar with Acton Tomko's channel, and I was like, I'm going on hiatus, and then I kept coming back and doing so that could happen again, but I don't think it will.
So Allison's asking for a link to your Facebook page.
You can get to it. I'll go ahead and post it. You can also get to it from my YouTube page. But yeah, let me here.
All right, while she's doing that, I'll just say my name's Mark. My channel is Enchantment of Eternity. If you're joining me for the first time, do Star Trek reviews, review the newer shows episode to episode, week to week, and also am going back and reviewing every episode of Star Trek that I hadn't covered already. In the middle of covering season 2, well, not the middle, the beginning of covering season 2 of Star Trek Next Generation, which now that Lower Decks is finished, I'll be focusing more on and trying to get that out as quick as possible so I can finally get to season 3 and actually watch good episodes for a change. And also doing live streams monthly, counting down my top 25 favorite episodes of Star Trek. I think we're up to my number 17, which would be sometime later this month. So yeah, be sure to check out my channel. Oh, also tomorrow, I'm going to be releasing a Patreon requested video from Norman in the chat there about my top 10 favorite actors in modern Trek. And that was a hard one to do, to boil down my top 10 favorite actors. But yeah, modern Trek favorite actors, that's going to come out tomorrow. So yeah, check out my channel for that. Anyway, Alyssa, any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, cool. Well, thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next time.
All right, see ya.